And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Monday, March 4th, 2024. And if you'd like additional weather information on top of what I give you in this YouTube broadcast, you can go online to weather.gov. That brings you to the National Weather Service's online presence, and it'll bring you to a map of the continental U.S. with Hawaii and Alaska to the lower left. You point and click anywhere on this map. It'll give you a spot forecast there for a given location, along with any relevant watches, warnings, or advisories. And of note on the weather map this Monday afternoon, we still have issues with winter weather in areas of the west and Intermountain West from southern Oregon, northern California into southern Idaho and up around the Yellowstone region, where we have winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories in effect. And of all things here in Hawaii, they have a flood watch in the Big Island, and it includes a winter storm warning for the summits like Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa. Could get as much as 6 inches of snow there in those high elevation locations on the island, the Big Island of Hawaii. But areas of light snow will continue to work their way across the interior as we go through the next day or so. This is the remnant moisture that came on shore with a couple of frontal systems along the west and southwest coast earlier this weekend. And a more active weather pattern will be developing across the Gulf as we go through this week. Snow, accumulating snows, are going to be pushing into the Panhandle, especially later Tuesday night and on Wednesday into Thursday, with several inches possible. There could be some watches and or warnings and advisories issued in response to that. And then with the systems that are going to be moving through the Gulf through mid and late week, it's going to cause colder air up over along the Arctic coast to begin to head southward, especially down along the west side of the mainland into the Alaska Peninsula starting Friday, and especially over the course of this upcoming weekend into early next week. We're going to see temperatures turn quite a bit colder across areas of the mainland. But looking at things here this afternoon, yes, the winds have picked up again there on the northwest Arctic coast. Ground blizzard conditions at Point Lay, where blizzard warnings are in effect there through Tuesday afternoon. 11 below zero, cold temperatures there. You can kind of see the little bluish hue above the layer of blowing snow here near the ground. Winds are gusting upwards around 40, even 50 miles an hour in some of those locations. Tanana getting a little light snow and fog as that moisture pushes inland across the interior. Temperature 12 degrees, but at least readings have come up a bit there in areas of the interior that were recently in the 30s, even some 40 below readings here last week. Kodiak getting a little light snow and fog this afternoon, temperature at 34 degrees, so it's a wet snow. Yakutat's watching the clouds increasing. There is a winter weather advisory for Yakutat for tonight into Tuesday for perhaps 4 to 6 inches of snow, and that's the beginning of that next couple areas of low pressure that'll be moving into the Gulf. Temperature there now 30 degrees, but those of you in the Panhandle will be dealing with some more accumulating snow, especially as we get into very late Tuesday night on Wednesday and into Thursday. So a quick check here of an interesting weather fact here as far as season snowfalls. The snowiest winters in Anchorage, the most notable one, 134.5 inches. That occurred in 2011, 2012. And then we have second and third place that go back into the mid-1950s. Here's where we sit right now. At least Anchorage area has had just over 119 inches of snow measured by the Weather Service office here near Ted Stevens Airport. And that puts this winter season the fifth snowiest on record through March 4th. We really haven't added to that since last week. It's been a pretty quiet stretch. We just need 2.5 more inches in Anchorage to push us up to fourth place, but 15.5 could break the all-time record. And seeing we still have much of March and April to get through, that's certainly obtainable. Looking at the hazardous weather, we have a special weather statement for the potential for that accumulating snow moving into the Gulf here for midweek, so keep that in mind. A winter weather advisory for the northeastern Gulf Coast, including Yakutat, for later tonight through the day Tuesday for 4 to 6 inches of snow. Now, there had been some winter weather advisories along Norton Sound. Those have been allowed to expire. We still have a winter weather advisory up here east end of Kotzebue Sound, and snows will continue there Generally light snows as they spread further inland across the central interior. But this area here, the winds picked up again. We have blizzard warnings, Point Lay down to Point Hope, and then winter weather advisories for snow, blowing snow for Point Lay on up to Wainwright. And that will continue tonight through much of the day on Tuesday. And looking at the satellite imagery, here's the moisture, the fronts that came on shore here. The first one's already kind of lifted up and washed out. That's the front that came into the southwest coast here later this weekend, and we continue to have some moisture being pushed inland from southwest to northeast. But more importantly, we have an area of low pressure now in the western Gulf. That's not going to become a major storm, but that's what brought some snow to Kodiak City today. Here comes the next, a little more compact low with a little deeper moisture. That's going to race up here into the central Gulf and kind of combine with this low that sits up here over the northwestern Gulf. And those two systems together are going to fling another round of moisture into the Panhandle, northeastern Gulf Coast, especially as we get into Tuesday night into Wednesday and Thursday. Meanwhile, the cold air is just sitting up here right now along the Arctic coast of Alaska and Canada. And some of that cold air is going to begin to break southward down along the west side of the state starting Friday and especially over this upcoming weekend. So here comes that front pushing further in. That's the second front to push inland, and that has with it some more moisture and areas of light snow that'll work its way across the interior. There's that typical weaker secondary low development there just east of Kodiak Island. And then here's the more compact low down there in the North Pacific. By the time we get into late tonight, early on Tuesday morning, we have the one low sitting out here in the west-southwest Gulf, another one that's going to catch up with it. Stationary front divides the really cold Arctic air along the Arctic coast between modified air that's the result of fronts moving inland with some areas of light snow spreading through the interior into the eastern interior, and a lingering area of low pressure in the North Bering as we get into Tuesday. Here are the Gulf lows just kind of sitting there with the front approaching the Panhandle. Front's kind of stalled out for now. As I mentioned, the cold air isn't going to come down the west side of the state until the end of this week and over the upcoming weekend. We got another low way out there just to the west-southwest of the western Aleutians. And then by midweek Wednesday, we have the one system here kind of consolidate into one over the north-central Gulf. Frontal system pushing in, that's going to pull moisture into the Panhandle, accumulating snows there, especially Wednesday going into Thursday. And then this system will eventually track also, this is all going to be part of the Gulf becoming the main area of low pressure systems here as we go through mid-month. And meanwhile, that's going to allow colder air, northeast, north winds come down on the west side of the state and then crossing the Alaska Peninsula, north-northwest winds. So this is really going to chill out the mainland, but we are going to see more in the way of precipitation from areas of south central, southeast into the Panhandle. Temperatures may actually moderate a bit here, especially across the southern Panhandle going through mid-month, because you're getting this constant flow of milder Pacific air coming in off of the Gulf and North Pacific. But still chilly Tuesday morning, some single digits the north end of the Panhandle, even teens all the way down there toward Craig and Ketchikan. With the cloud cover that's in place, that'll keep temperatures from falling too much, and the air mass overall is moderated coming in from the south and west. So we do expect temperatures, Anchorage Bowl back up around freezing on Tuesday afternoon and above freezing along areas of the Kenai, even up there to Talkeetna. Back here along the lower Panhandle, we're looking at temperatures mid-upper 30s, still around or a bit below freezing. The inner channels, especially, say, from around Petersburg, Juneau, on up to Skagway and Haines. And then low temperatures Wednesday morning, not as cold as they've been, certainly not like last week. And then here, we expect some readings to be near freezing along the west-southwest coastline of the Panhandle as the result of that frontal boundary and stronger winds that will set up with that front moving inland. So by Wednesday afternoon, that front pushing into the Panhandle, we could see some of the outer coastal areas get back up above, just above 40 degrees, and then getting a little above freezing, a few degrees or so above freezing in the northern Panhandle. Back here to the west, temperatures have moderated because we've had that southwest to northeast flow of milder air and fronts coming in from off the lower Bering and North Pacific. For the interior, the coldest air is going to sit up here along the Arctic coast this week for the time being. Not as cold in the east central Yukon Flats or Northway areas. We've seen temperatures moderate around Norton Sound, up the lower half of the Yukon River, and certainly up the Kuskokwim River Basin. And temperatures Tuesday afternoon could be around 32 degrees, creeping up into the middle portion of the Yukon. Could get readings up around 30 there. And still, though, readings in the teens below zero along the Arctic coast, Kaktovik, all the way on through Wainwright. And that cold air will not begin to shift southward until the end of this week. So morning lows Wednesday morning in the 20s, could even be a few spots near 30 below up here. Meanwhile, we have pockets of single-digit sub-zero weather, Yukon Flats, Northway, but otherwise temperatures as expected whenever you get a couple of fronts like that coming off the Bering. As they work their way, the remnants of that work their way northeastward. The interior tends to see temperatures moderate, and that's been the case, though readings won't be quite as warm. Midweek, maybe highs generally in the 20s along the Yukon River, especially once you get, say, Tanana westward toward Norton Sound. But it remains cold up here along the Arctic coast, and as I said, that's going to break free and head southward here as we get into Friday and over the weekend. Temperatures moderate, morning lows in some areas above 20, near and just above freezing along areas of the Alaska Peninsula. And temperatures Tuesday afternoon, 30s, some 40-degree readings, certainly not out of the question here, tailing out along the Alaska Peninsula to Unalaska. And then for Wednesday morning, again, lows 20-ish, just above 20 in many spots where cloud cover holds. Near freezing along the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians. Those temperatures not quite as warm as like readings back up around freezing or 30 on Tuesday. They'll cool back into the mid-upper 20s. Temperatures, though, still along the Gulf Coast from Kodiak City, King Salmon, southwestward, above freezing, easily mid-upper 30s to near 40 degrees for Wednesday afternoon. But here again, this is something I've been talking about for over a week now, because this is a good signature that the medium range forecast models lock into. Below to much below normal temperatures across the mainland, especially the west. What's going to happen is March 10th is Sunday into early next week. The cold air is going to start heading southward Friday and over the weekend and really plunge down here along the west side of the state. Then it'll cross the Alaska Peninsula as the winds go northeast to north and then north-northwest. That sets the stage for drier air, colder conditions on the west side of the state. Meanwhile, the circulation brings in moisture across the Panhandle and into the southeast mainland and south central areas. So initially, temperatures are going to be near normal, say here and through the Panhandle, but by the time we get into mid-March, around 15th, 16th, so the 12th through the 18th, we see the coldest air along the west side of the state, especially Kotzebue, Nome, down through Bethel, but moderating a bit here across the Panhandle because you're getting this constant southerly, southeast, southwesterly flow of air off the Gulf, North Pacific. What does that translate to precipitation? Starting later this weekend into early next week, we could start to see above normal precipitation push up along the eastern mainland, especially southeast mainland, Anchorage to as far north as Fairbanks, Northway, especially Copper River Basin back here through the Panhandle. Drier than normal conditions along the west coast with that cold northeast to north flow. And look at mid-month, March 12th and the 18th, above normal temperature, precipitation centered south of the Alaska Range on the Copper River Basin perhaps. All it takes is a low to pull back some moisture toward the Anchorage area, and Anchorage could get up in record territory for its season snowfall total. Just 15.5 more inches is all that's needed, and this is the kind of pattern you want to see to break a record like that. So stay tuned to later forecasts. We certainly are not done with winter as we go through mid-March.